Hello there. This is Francois again. Welcome to another episode of Peacecraft. So today we're going to be talking about peace and justice and how they are inseparable. Now, this gets very philosophical, okay? And I'm going to start with justice because justice is much more elusive one in this conversation. Now, we have this thing of retribution, right? And we have this thing called revenge, okay? Now, we have to understand, is this justice? Possibly, to a certain extent. But I think justice is not all that simple. Because if we're going to have a substantial justice, it's not just retribution that's needed. What's actually needed in justice is reparation to repair the wrongs. I think that's where justice lies. And in this reparation, this activity of justice, we do get to a point of establishing peace, in a sense. Now, I'm not alluding to this as like an end goal for it all, because I believe peace is something that manifests through conditions, in a sense. It comes about, much like conflict just comes about through certain conditions. And justice is a part of that work. And it's very important for us to really reflect on what is justice? Is justice fully self-centered? That has to deal with righting wrongs against me? Possibly so. But I think there's more to this. If someone were to wrong me, let's say, I don't know, someone frauded me out, right? And yeah, they were caught, and I received my damages, and so on and so forth. Oh yeah, cool. Justice done. No, I don't think that's the end of this. I think the end for justice extends further. It extends to a point where the culprit, right, moves on from that activity. The person's no longer doing fraudulent activity. Instead, we have redemption. I think that's where justice truly lies. On one hand, we have reparations being done, but on the other hand, we have redemption. Okay? And that's why I want to clarify here. Peace is always in certain conditions. Okay? Now, conditions are always changing. We are in a ever-changing life. Okay? So, peace is also very dynamic. It comes, it goes, just because that's what happens. Conflict comes when certain conditions happen, and You have to find ways to bring back peace. One of my greatest examples um, are like storms, right? So, Louisiana is very well known for having crazy storms. They're also called hurricanes, if you didn't know. Um, and when under certain conditions, right, these hurricanes come, wreaks a lot of havoc, you know, but then it subsides because the conditions have passed. Now, this happens over and over again, okay? Now, it's up to the person living in Louisiana, okay, to understand this phenomenon, right? How can we best protect themselves with these storms? Not in the sense of the storm is an adversary, you know? The storm is a phenomenon, okay? Now, this protection doesn't involve weaponry, like, oh yeah, you know what? When a storm comes, I'm gonna shoot it. I'm gonna shoot at the air. Dang this storm! This is war. No, that's not what we do. What we do instead is we set up certain preparations for our estate. We make sure that we have like certain insurances and so on and so forth. If you notice, these are all non-violent things that we're doing here. And I think that's what's need to be understood as well about peace and justice. Peace and justice doesn't have to rely on violence. Okay? When there is an injustice, when there is a conflict, and they're out there and they're often together. It's like whenever there's an injustice, there is a conflict. Okay? We need to understand that although violence um, is very easy to initiate, we are emotional creatures. But at the same time, there are ways, and that's the whole thing of Peacecraft. There are ways in which we do not necessarily need to use violence, in a sense, to, protect ourselves from storms. And I see storms as conflict. Conflicts come and they go, come and they go. But I think the most important thing is that we understand how these conflicts come about. Much like we know how hurricanes happen, we need to understand the root of these conflicts, the root of these injustices. Okay? Because let's look at this. There's been a major injustice in the United States of America against the African American community. And there was plenty of action being done, mostly nonviolent, but of course there were some violent actors as well. But most of the civil rights movement was nonviolent. Because what Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, Angela Davis, and the many more during that period of time, their call for justice was because they wanted peace among American people. When there is oppression, both overtly as well as systematically, that is not peace, you know? Injustice is just another side of the coin of conflict. In a just world, there will be peace. Now, you could challenge me on this, and I want you to. Challenge me. Send me your questions, send me your scenarios, and yeah, we could break it down. I will break it down the best I can to show why this phenomena exists. As we pursue justice, peace will manifest. If we look at the world right now, we haven't really been seeking for justice for the most part. If we look at like the big macro picture of the UN and all the major national players and states, even corporations at that, um, economic classes, so on and so forth, even the racial dimension at that. There is not adequate movement of justice because as I've returned to another episode, narratives, okay? When we're on the road to justice, the practice of justice, because much like peace, justice and peace is not an end thing. There's no end to it. It we have to continually practice it because life is dynamic. Now return to what I was getting at. Those who seek justice are the ones who actually come to grips with the actuality of things in lieu of narratives. I repeat that again. Those who pursue justice face head on the actuality of things in lieu of narratives. Now, why is this very important? On the one hand, it's very important for us to really investigate the actuality of things. But we cannot lose sight of narratives because it is through the narratives we begin to seek bridges, in a sense. We need to see how people are seeing the world. What are their blind spots? What have they been misled by? What are their kind of fantasies and visions, you know? And then from there, we need to have that in tandem, juxtaposed to the actuality of things. Now, I know the biggest thing that kind of comes up is like, well, what is the actuality of things? How do we find out what the actuality of thing is? And you know what? That's research. You have to research. And you have to research wide, broad, being redundant here, but on purpose. Wide and broad, but also very detailed and in depth. Okay? We need to look at things and the multiplicity, right? This is one of the reasons why I really enjoy sociological and anthropological research, because they touch upon these things, um, upon the actuality of things, you know? Uh, Even historians, too, they get into that. They get into the actuality of things. Of course, that we will run into narratives, okay? But narratives will always have like a certain spin. But what's important is we come to grips with the actuality of it all. Now, if you've noticed, I never say reality. Now, why am I not using that word? The reason why I'm not using that word is because reality actually deals with narrative. We all have our own little realities, okay? We kind of see things and we kind of immerse ourselves, so on and so forth. Our experience is predicated, and that's like an experience. I like to see it as reality, and reality changes. Actuality of things, they change, but they change based upon the empirical, you know. The actuality of things is basically, the example before is, Gulf gets really hot, water evaporates, there is a certain airstream, these clouds get heavy, gets torrent, and becomes a hurricane. Actuality of things. Of course, you know, and this is all through change. Life is change. Now, reality could see as, oh, you know, every once in a while, the gods get angry with us and sends over a hurricane. Or, um, heavens have blessed us with lots of rain. It's a reality. But the actuality of things is actually very empirical and also very scientific at that. And I think that's what we need to get to. That is our tool for us, in a sense, for Peacecraft and understanding peace and justice. Understanding that in the pursuit of justice, peace will manifest. But also, we need to understand that within this pursuit of justice, we need to have the great diligence to also investigate the actuality in lieu of narrative. Now, there's some cool methods I would like to end you with. One of them is a research method. There's three of them, actually, three research methods. One is qualitative. Qualitative research is when you're actually going out doing interviews, and going out in the field and taking field notes. Those are all qualitative in a sense. You're getting to the experiential way of things. Quantitative is more so looking at the numbers. It's like much more survey based, chart based. It's very mathematical in that kind of sense, numerical. And they're both highly important because it adds to the contextual nature of this, of getting down to the actuality of things. Now, the last one of my favorite ones, and it's a great tool in Peacecraft, is called participatory action research. Now, it's participatory in a sense that as we are doing the research, we are involving ourselves within that community. The action part is that we are there also to whatever we find of the actuality of things. We also do work to correct them, to repair them, to make things better. Participatory action research. It's very integrative in a sense. Instead of me just going out to, let's say, Mexico and just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do a sociological qualitative study. We're gonna interview these people, get a interesting uh, look at the world. Uh, we'll look at that corner of the world. Um, Write a report or an article, maybe even make like a documentary, et cetera, and share the story. Share this actuality of things in Mexico. You could choose any topic, any village, etc. But participatory action research is we do this, but we also put in the work to fix these things. We do we get into doing advocacy work. We get into helping build organizations. We help, you know, organizations within those communities, et cetera, and we use that research to help them. Furthermore, when participatory action research, the research is not only done by the researchers, also the people who we interview, even like the other organizations we meet along the way, are all part of this research. It's a very collaborative method to utilize. And I believe it is the right method tool for Peacecraft, for understanding this pursuit of justice manifests peace. And so, yeah, I'll leave that for you today. Yeah, feel free to email me questions. Now, if you ever forget where my email is, feel free to go to the blog. In the About section, you will find my contact information of that blog that's attached with this podcast. And yeah, send me your questions, send me your thoughts, and yeah, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's get down to the actuality of things. Well, that's it for me today. I'll see you next time.